Hello, and welcome to Split Your Head. I'm your host, Bob, and today's special guests are Daniel Valient for White Gardenia and Celeste Henry, aka Blucifer. These two underground extreme artists have been catching my attention, whether it's Daniel's penchant for terrifying self harm or Celeste's sewer slime coated experiments. They were both participants in Jonathan Doe's anthology, Symphony of Suffering, but now they have joined the mosaic of provocative artists behind White Gardenia's The King James Bible. Somewhat of a work in progress, as the 76-minute cut has been unleashed with the promise of a 330-minute experience right around the corner. From what I've seen so far, it's quite a head splitter. So naturally, I had to have them on to talk about this bizarre and powerful project. Whew. Guys, how are you doing?
Wonderful.
Good. How are you doing, Bob?
Good, good. I'm
Good to
glad
see both of you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to hear from you.
Thank you. And it's great to see both. It's good to see Bob and Celeste. So wondering if it would be okay, since this is a film about the Bible and a film about faith, Christian faith, and faith in general. I wonder if it'd be okay if I just said a quick prayer to start things off,
Sure.
just to bless the conversation and bless our time together.
Okay.
Oh, thanks, Bob.
Yeah, no problem.
Dear Lord Jesus, as we engage in this conversation, we ask for your guidance and blessing. Help me to communicate clearly, express my thoughts with clarity. May this conversation be a blessing, fostering understanding and strengthening relationships. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, well, I think that's a pretty good starting point to
Bob,
just jump right into it. What's that?
Thanks, Bob. I just wanted to. Things started off with some technical problems on my side, so hopefully that prayer will, get things going on the right track.
I mean, if it does, right, then that's a miracle. So I think it's really
Exactly.
it's really fascinating to me that you've wanted to do this project that is obviously deeply religious and has to do with the Bible, of course, but is still affiliated with like extreme horror to some degree. Obviously with Celeste being involved and her making extreme horror art and you, Daniel, making very extreme horror. So I mean, this just is kind of coming to my mind right now, Daniel, but do you have a way to explain how that works exactly for you, or like why you were inspired to do that?
Well, I think the connection point would be that if you're into horror and you're into, for instance, goth culture,
Mm.
you are likely to have perhaps you're likely to have an interest in death or an obsession with life after death.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably a prevalent thing in goth culture to be. Goth culture is kind of built around the idea of that life is meaningless because of death, or conversely, searching for meaning because of that threat of death looming off in the distance. And so I would say White Gardenia came out of goth culture. I mean, I was certainly a goth and hung out with goths. And so that idea of like cutting yourself or self-mutilation as kind of a way to, well, I mean, that can only go so far. And like eventually, probably you either end up killing yourself or you try to find some kind of meaning, or like Karl Popper says, life is meaningless, but we can attribute kind of where the transhumanist notion comes in is like, if life is meaningless, there is, defeat death. If there is no supernatural component to reality, maybe we can use science or scientific advancement to defeat death that way. And so this film is about both of those things, about religion as being a possible way to defeat death, and also science as a possible way to defeat death.
Okay. Interesting. And then Celeste, then for you being a part of this project, have you had like a prior relationship with religion or experience with religion at all, or Christianity specifically?
Yes, totally. I was brought up Roman Catholic,
Okay.
baptized, and went through everything. And I don't really necessarily see myself as Catholic now. See myself as spiritual. I am very open to beliefs, and I have kind of my own type of belief that basically takes all of, universal truths out of all of them. So
Cool. Cool. Yeah.
yeah.
So Daniel, I was just saying, so with Celeste was just explaining that she has had experience with being a Catholic, but is now sort of more like open about religious ideas and her spirituality, and was just curious whether the participants in creating the King James Bible, was that something that was necessary for you to invite them on board? Like, did they have to have any kind of background in religion or any interest in religion or spirituality?
No, I don't think so, because I would say most of the people involved, I'm just guessing, but I think most of them might be atheists. It
Okay.
was just kind of the people I happened to be talking with in that period of time that,
Yeah.
people, I think maybe one of the first people I talked to was Giacomo Vanity,
Mm.
who was going to contribute, who I had just done the split. We had just done
Right.
the split release. It ended up that he never did finish a segment for it, ironically. But then it just
Mm.
kind of happened that different other people I've been talking with about other things contributed. But I think there's people interested in religion, are interested in horror. I mean, there's an overlap. The horror, the Bible is filled with horror from start to finish, and the Bible's filled with horrific imagery that gets echoed all throughout, everything from heavy metal music to horror films to paintings. And so I think it's pretty natural. I think even if you're an atheist, there's, the religious symbolism and iconography kind of is such an important part of the history of art that I think it's just impossible to avoid it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned Jack was going to be one of the people involved, and obviously Celeste is, a part of it as well. Can you talk a little bit about all the other people that have contributed so far?
Yeah, well, Celeste's part was really important to this project. Really important because
Mm.
I would want to talk about how she did provide the Garden of Eden segment. The starting point of the biblical story is the Garden of Eden, and the Garden of Eden. So Celeste finished her segment really fast, and that was able provided the ability for me to really get things going. Um, it was one of the best. It's one of the best segments of the. More specifically, she supplied the birth of Seth segment, which for the uninitiated is the story of Seth in the Bible, is the birth of Eve's third child after Cain and Abel. The third child is Seth, and that third child, Eve gives birth to that child as a way to replace Abel, who's just been murdered by Cain. The first murder according to biblical tradition. But the Bible explicitly states that Seth was born as a replacement for Abel. So you can understand how a grieving mother would take comfort in having a new child to replace him. But this also helps to establish a thread that I follow all through the film. I mean, this is why Celeste's segment was important, and this is the part of her segment that's included in this version, John Calvin, that's just been put out. Um, this kind of tragic history of the human race, like this trying in absolute futility to live on by reproducing, thinking that you can live on, people thinking that they can live on through their children, or thinking in this case that a sibling can replace a dead brother. And this is the tragic, this is the tragic subtext of the human race, not just for Christians, but for atheists as well, because despite what seems to be this mistaken belief that we can somehow live on through our children, it seems that we are completely separate, different people from our children. So it seems that a pursuit of immortality down that avenue was a mistake. But I mean, that's what in that part of the film, that sequence that I used from Celeste in this version, is really important to establishing that, that's the beginning of the history of death, like that human race is content with dying as long as we can leave a lineage. And in a strange way, it intentionally created a through line to modern science. We needed generation after generation of people collectively contributing to the scientific process so we could get to the point where we are now, where we do see that human immortality is possible from a scientific perspective. So even that mistaken notion and things like faith, if it turns out that religion is not true, it was still something really important that evolution selected for, so that it would keep something the human race needed to believe in to keep us going to this point where we can, where, like I say, where it does look from a scientific perspective like we will have humans living, we will have human longevity, and maybe eventually, probably pretty soon, human immortality.
Right, which is kind of a running theme with a lot of your work and a lot of like your philosophies in a way, is this idea of transhumanism and defeating death and everything. And it's interesting to me, as an atheist, like I don't have a lot of experience with the Bible, but I didn't know that there was such a strong connection between these ideas and the Bible. I think as someone with a very little knowledge of Christianity, I always understood it that Christians live their life in a way to go to heaven, right? And so I never knew that there was this connection to, resurrection and immortality and things like that. So that's honestly pretty fascinating.
Well, I think that probably most Christians have that same understanding, which is why probably a lot of Christians, I think things changed with Elon Musk, because the Christians obviously had latched onto Trump. People had latched onto Trump. And, I think there was, before Elon Musk became part of the equation, Christians were very skeptical of transhumanism. And, the conspiracy shows that Christians listen to, previously, historically, have been like very skeptical of the notion of people like Ray Kurzweil, the idea of living forever, or the scientific way to advance a scientific way towards immortality. And so I think Christians were skeptical of that. I think Elon Musk coming on board, Elon Musk is indisputably a transhumanist. So suddenly the Christian kind of view of this changed, it's interesting that Christians are so like malleable, that their moral code is like so easily reshaped by Trump, but it did seem to reshape it. The fact that he like gave his like seal of approval on Elon Musk kind of meant that Christians are like, okay, then we're on board with transhumanism all of a sudden. But I think, I'm sorry to go back to like address what you were really raising, is does it make sense, or is it paradoxical? Transhumanists would say there needs to be a resurrection. It's actually almost the only thing that explains the Bible, because the Bible over and over again talks about there being a resurrection in the far future. In the Old Testament, it doesn't seem like there's much hope for the afterlife, but they do, around the time of like the prophets, the prophetic books, they start predicting that there is going to be a resurrection in the far future. In books like Hosea and books like Daniel, and the prediction, and then that becomes more enunciated in the New Testament, like once Christ enters the picture and these different things, Revelation, different things like that, then it becomes almost the main subject of the Bible, is that there's going to be a resurrection in the future. Not only that, it seems there's going to be multiple resurrections, which to me perfectly coincides with the idea of the scientific vision of how resurrections would work, which is that we would ostensibly be able to do simulations which are imperfect. Maybe at some point we're able to have simulation technology or quantum archaeology that doesn't quite bring back the exact right person. But then as that technology advances further and as it's perfected, then that, we'll be able to bring back more accurate versions of, for instance, if you're trying to bring back someone like, say, Cary Grant, you could take you do a virtual reality rendering of him, basically take all the attributes you know about him, but we don't know everything about him. But we can take his, it'd be pretty easy to map his biological makeup, but then we have to like guess at a lot of what's going on in his consciousness as far as his personality. So you'd have to make really realistically probably trillions of different versions of Cary Grant before you can get the exact right version of him. And that's why the idea of multiple resurrections is pretty likely. That's probably how it would work if you wanted to start resurrecting people.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's what you're saying. You kind of get across. I'd say it's probably like halfway through at least a 76-minute cut. You get into a whole passage where you talk a lot about this. And I remember that part actually coming off extremely kind of sad in a lot of ways, which is sort of an interesting thing. But sorry, I don't want to ignore Celeste at all here because I feel like we should give equal opportunity to talk here. So Celeste, for your segment then, what kind of parameters were you given? Like, were you basically told this is a section of the Bible that you have to recreate, or was it fairly free for you to work with?
Daniel was actually pretty thorough about what he wanted me to do. I I kind of know the Bible already, so I kind of just went back and reread the segment over just to get more of a feeling. And yeah, no, I just went with what he said and kind of just winged it from there. Just kind of got into that feeling of loss. I've been through loss. Kind of sounds silly, but having a dog that passed away, I kind of just put myself into that feeling again of her passing away, and just helped me out a lot with that.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that's all right.
Was there any kind of like references or inspirations, like like visually, in terms of like any other films or certain artists or images that you were kind of told to replicate or that you wanted to replicate?
Not necessarily. More so just kind of like do what I wanted to do, kind of just my own artsy creative eye.
Yeah. Well, I will say, watching it, and I before watching, I'd only seen your segment in Symphony of Suffering. I could tell it was your section, and so I do feel like there was that ownership to that, and I think that's something I actually really enjoyed about the entire project as a whole, at least so far from what I've seen, is that it does have the strengths of a compilation in a lot of ways, but that because it's all one project, one continuous narrative with one sort of cohesive idea, it kind of felt like this whole new experience. And it reminded me a little bit of, do you guys know The Exquisite Corpse?
I'm familiar with the original kind of surrealist, the surrealist parlor game, but was there a subsequent, like I'm sure there's been a few kind of films and different things that have also used that same name?
I actually don't really know. I think what you're talking about, Daniel, is what I meant. Like it's basically you write, I think from what I understand, someone would write like one line, and then another person would write another line, and then every time after that someone would write a new line on the paper, they'd fold up the first part so that it ends up becoming this whole I think it's supposed to be like a poem or a story or something, but there's this nature of it that it's like continuously traveling and like growing, but it's also somewhat erratic too, like I guess it would take on its own life in each section.
That kind of haphazard, that kind of way that kind of uses mistakist aesthetic, that definitely was exactly the way that this was approached, because
cool.
I wanted to be able to, like, whatever the people submitted to me, I had to be able to utilize that. And so if they introduced a certain topic or a certain thread, I like, that was part of the rules, is I would have to use that. And so I was grateful that Celeste provided that first kind of cornerstone with the Garden of Eden segment. with that and the Seth segment, because that was what like I say, that was able for me to start talking about death and follow, build on that, and then it started building into the transhumanist stuff. I knew I would have to get into that stuff at some point, but she kind of provided the perfect starting point for everything.
Nice. Okay. And it also seemed like certain artists had their work come up multiple times. Do you know what I mean? Like there was
Yeah,
like the animation, like who was in charge of the animation parts?
yeah. And there's fantastic. There's a lot of different stuff. There's different aesthetics there that Vivian K. Quintero and Daniel Zander,
Okay.
they have kind of similar approaches. But Vivian K. Quintero, really excellent artist. We had some disagreements about the editing, so I will just say I'm kind of, the final cut can be blamed completely on me.
Okay.
How that looks in the final manifestation of it. She doesn't deserve any blame. Any blame or any praise would have to go to me on that one. So I
Oh,
regret
okay.
that we couldn't quite come to a meeting of minds on that. And
Okay.
then there's this, what some people also were thinking it was a similar style, was Daniel Zander, the German artist, the German filmmaker.
Okay.
And his material is on the disc as well. And he's actually doing a premiere, maybe some, I guess it could be the official premiere of the film in Berlin, which I think will be in a couple of weeks here.
Oh, awesome.
Wow. Love that.
Sweet. Yeah. Um and so have a lot of people seen it yet? Like or is like are you like because I think the DVD is supposed to come out soon, right?
Oh, the DVD is out through Bizarre Theater. The DVD is
Okay.
out through, it's available from Bizarre Theater.
Okay.
Um, Sam Hell has been doing an incredible job trying to navigate everything and making everyone happy. And so I'm really grateful to Sam Hell, and Bizarre Theater is doing it. I've released two other films through them, How to Raise Women from the Dead and Blood Tastes Like Perfume. So I'm always happy to work with those guys.
Okay, cool. So for the people that have seen it so far, what's the response been like?
The response, I think some people, I think that a lot of extreme horror fans are not happy with it, because
Oh,
it's not, there's not really there is horror. There's definitely, to me, there's extreme horror in this film,
sure.
but I
Mhm.
mean, maybe a lot of people buying our films are expecting there to be self mutilation,
Okay.
are expecting there to be, like very graphic, lurid, maybe sexual material, or self mutilation. And this in this film, I wanted everything to be as G-rated as possible. It's not. I mean, I'd say this would be R-rated, but I did want there to be, to prohibit any kind of sexual material, because I do take this seriously from a religious perspective.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
I do take the subject matter, and it has religious significance for me. And I take my other films seriously too, though. And this film is a conceptual sequel to How to Raise Women from the Dead, which
Oh.
also through Bizarre Theater. But that film was talking about, of course, that was the plot about a woman being murdered by a serial killer. And then the back half of that film is trying to explain in like real terms about quantum physics and extropic theory how you would go about raising a person from the dead, theoretically. And
Okay.
so then I did the film Split with Jack Mulvaney, and also that film, which was considered mostly just moments of self mutilation and kind of
Right.
more some of our more brutal kind of highlights from our different films. Um, that, as I was editing it, it strangely started becoming a film about religion, about Christianity and Christian nationalism, and like the kind of the strange evolution of Christianity in the last 10 years, which has become like very kind of ruthless, kind of
Mm.
cold-hearted. Not everyone. There's still amazing Christians out there, but there's like some in the Christian circles kind of concurrent with the rise of Trumpism, there is what I would say Christians who are very, and again, the Christians I know, a lot of the Christians that are I just want to make sure I'm really clear in saying
Sure.
that I'm not condemning Christianity in general.
Yeah.
The Christian community that I know, there are a ton of really, really wonderful people. My family, many of my close friends, they're part of the Christian conservative community in America. But in contrast, I would say that there are many people in the modern Christian conservative movement, maybe associated with modern churches, very much, and part of this is conspiracy theory culture, which has somehow kind of seeped into Christian theology, kind of become intertangled. And some of these people are the most hypocritical, judgmental, loathsome scum of the earth. People who love to sit in judgment on the morale.
Don't hate me, Daniel. I love conspiracies, but I don't love to feed into them.
But
I love conspiracies. I don't like to feed into them, though. Let me put it that way.
Right. Oh, and I'm not, again, I know people who are very much into conspiracy theories who are very good people. But when conspiracy theories can be used as a kind of a weapon where you can kind of sit on the judgment, on the morality of others, and a lot of the Christians, the kind of Christians I'm talking about, are hypocrites who love that feeling of moral superiority, who love to pretend they're morally superior. And they love to feel that feeling of superiority over people who are different or strange, who are actually, and a lot of times these people are much bigger sinners than anyone. But you can use conspiracy theories to reframe anything and everything, and to try and depict things to try to depict yourself as the good guy. And so what I found is that there is some incredibly loathsome, willfully stupid, cruel, judgmental, uncharitable, hateful hypocrites in the Christian community, in some circles, not the people close to me. I mean, I love the people close to me, but there's a lot more to Christianity than that, and especially built into the Christian tradition. And I wanted to explore that in this film. I wanted to show, hopefully the better aspects of the Christian tradition, and also to some extent explore the dark side. But I think Celeste was kind of saying something there about her views on conspiracy theories. I'd like to hear what she has to, what she would say in regards to that little diatribe I just went on.
I just want to say real quick too. I think it's a little sad that people are not liking it in response, because I mean, I get it. They have expectations, but I feel like people need to definitely have a lot more open-minded to art in general, and just But anyway, conspiracies. I love.
And I agree with you, because I think avant-garde art, I mean, I feel that, me and Celeste and Bob, I mean, we're probably well-versed in all kinds of art. And so maybe, this, and I should also mention, I have had a lot of positive response to it too.
Oh, that's great.
I've had many people who have, messaged me and said really positive things about it too. I just think by and large that maybe the extreme horror community was expecting slightly different kind of, well, I think specifically everyone was expecting I was going to have my hands nailed onto a cross. And that scene never happened. So I think that.
Yeah. Well,
I can see that.
For what it's worth, there was no actual self-harm in this. I mean, at least from what I've seen so far. And I still found a lot of it very unsettling. And your whole segment, Daniel, you talking about wanting everyone in your family to live forever. I don't know why, but that had a really strong effect on me. And I found there was something very sad and very scary at the same time. And I don't know what you tapped into there, but if you can do something like that without having to hurt yourself, more power to you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I had someone just yesterday telling me that sequence made them cry because it kind of resonated with them also.
Yeah,
Uh,
I feel like everyone
Um,
can relate
so
with that.
Yeah, so you feel like it hasn't kind of maybe shocked people in the same way that your older material did.
yeah, I think that people who see it are kind of generally. I haven't had anyone like really being critical. It's just that like some people that usually do the. I would just say that it's more of a subdued response, and the other films are so lurid and everything that I guess that makes sense. That and I do think that people in this community, in this kind of extreme community, extreme horror community, are really nice people and they don't want to be critical. So I just kind of think that I'm assuming that some of the kind of silence is just people not wanting to um, people being polite and not wanting to comment on it if they don't like the film. But conversely, I've had, like I said, there's many people contacted me and said they really are rewatching the film and finding different parts of it interesting. So that this film is definitely meant as a message. The audience for this film is meant for. I mean, I would hope people, the people who enjoyed our other films enjoy this. I'd hope the people that enjoy Blucifer's content would enjoy this. But I think my target personally is like I'm thinking that this is more like a message in the bottle for the far future,
Mm.
and maybe just in a small way, I would like it to be like a message to whatever the people, the future of the human race. When we do, the human race does evolve, whatever the human race evolves into. I would specifically that scene you were referencing and other scenes where I'm making my intentions clear that I would like to be resurrected and that I would hope that the super intelligent, the humans in the future, AI versions of humans, however it turns out, I would like them to know that I would like to be resurrected, that I'd like my family to be resurrected, and and I don't think that contradicts having Christian faith either, because like Bob, you were saying you're an atheist.
Yeah.
Atheists are incredibly important to the human race. We had to have people working on how to solve the problem of death who were atheists, who were people like Richard Dawkins, who have proposed multiple different ideas of how we could defeat death. Paradoxically, it could be that different things like Zoltan Istvan.
Okay.
He's a transhumanist guy and an atheist who has come up with a few different theories of like how you could bring back, like he wants to. Yeah, the Zoltan is came up with a quantum archaeology theory. I think he said I'd like to bring my dad back from the dead. I'd like to resurrect my dad,
Yeah.
and he. So I reference that quite a bit because that it's quite a bit in this film and in How to Raise Women from the Dead, that idea. But see, the thing is that it could be that life is meaningless. There's like enough evidence where I can understand why atheists, there's probably the most intelligent people are atheists. But there is also this kind of like slims, this stuff happening on the margins that doesn't that makes me hold out hope that there is some kind of supernatural aspect to reality, and
Mm-hmm.
that would be excellent because that would. But those are the two doors. Those are the two possible ways to.
Yeah. Um, One thing I'm wondering is if you have any plans to show this film to people that are Christian or like Christian communities or people part of like transhumanism communities, or do you know what I mean? Like if you wanted to show this film to those people and what you would hope that their reaction would be.
Um, yeah, I had like Peter Clark, who's a transhumanist, contributed a segment. He's not part of the horror community at all. He's a transhumanist who contributed a segment to the when the final version of the King James Bible is released. He will be his segment will be in it. And so I've kind of corresponded with him a little bit. He writes for different magazines. I think he's written for the New Yorker and maybe
Oh
some
wow.
other magazines. The Quillette. I know he works for Quillette. Um, but the yeah, so there's definitely going to be there'll be a lot more people involved when the final version of this is released, and that's still that is forthcoming. There will be a final version of it.
Okay.
But I'm very content with this, and I was really happy to be able, and I want everyone to see Celeste's. There's much more to Celeste's contribution that will be in the final version. So
Oh,
you're just seeing a small fragment of her contribution.
awesome.
Little
Her
clip.
full Garden of Eden segment is, everyone that sees it is like very blown away.
Awesome. So, when's the rough idea of when the full version will be out?
Um, it's not clear. It's not clear. I probably two different projects. At least I have to get my split release with Celeste out because me and Celeste have been working on this, and
Oh,
she's got her segments done and ready to go. And I I wake up in guilt every night that I haven't gotten my segments done yet.
okay.
And
No
so that
rush.
at least has to come out.
Yeah. So what's this
Mm.
project? Is this, sorry, this is outside of the King James Bible. This is like a split project between the two of you?
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
totally unrelated and goes back to more of the extreme horror stuff. I'll let Celeste tell you a bit more about that.
Yeah, please.
Sure. So I hit Daniel up saying like, we should do a split together. I feel like we definitely have like some like different, but kind of the same type of like vibe when it
Hmm.
comes to horror and the aesthetic and whatnot. So he was all for it, and I came up with my segment. I guess I could, yeah, I'll put it this way. It's basically kind of like my own rendition of Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, cool.
Um, yeah, and but a little different. It has its difference to it, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, and we were thinking of like what else we could do, uh, to have a little bit more to it because it's just like a short split, type thing.
Yeah.
We wanted to include more into it, and Daniel had the great idea of we both make music. Why don't we make music videos for each
Sweet.
other's songs? And yeah, I'm very excited to see what they did, and I've picked out 3 songs from what he's made, and yeah, I'm really excited. I hope people enjoy what I've done visually to his
Yeah.
to his music.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Daniel, like, do you want to talk about your contribution, or sorry, you haven't worked on it yet? Is that right?
I've been working on it. There's a couple
Okay.
splits, a couple segments are ready to go for that.
Sweet.
Um, I mean, they're getting close.
Yeah.
It's just been, that it's, I'm really happy with this one that's almost done. But I wanted to, so that'll definitely come out before the final version of the Bible.
Okay.
But I was really important. One of the things that I think one of the reasons there's a muted response to this John Calvin
Mm,
version is that people are saying, I want to wait till the full version is out. I've definitely had 4 or 5 people say that. Well,
mm.
probably more than that have said, I'm just going to wait to see the full length version. But I hope people see this because this is following a different thread. Like you could take the Bible and tell like 10 different stories. Like you could follow it starting with the story of Abraham and follow through like the people of Israel, follow that plot line, or you
Yeah.
could follow a plot line in regards to like the story of death, the history of eating the tree of garden, eating the fruit in the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and that's being the beginning of death, and all these different things. You could follow these different stories. In this one, in the John Calvin one, I specifically wanted to address this idea of Calvinism, which is a branch of biblical. It's a kind of a like super conservative branch of Christianity, and the reason as I was working on this film, I started realizing more and more how important that theology is to the idea of transhumanism. If we are going to go down this road where we're going to start bringing people back to life, that theological, that notion is going to be super important for people to grasp. The whole idea of mapping Christianity out over the idea of transhumanism is just one way to make it understandable to the average person. And you could probably do that with any religion. You could probably map transhumanism out over Buddhism, or you could map it out over Judaism, because when you have with transhumanism, you're basically unlocking that door where suddenly, well, like Arthur Clarke said, one sufficiently advanced science is indistinguishable from magic. And so that is kind of the notion, is that once we have unlocked that level of reality, we'll be playing by new rules, and religion helps us, already has these rules kind of laid out. What happens when we're immortal? What should heaven look like?
Yeah.
If we're going to create heaven on earth, like, here are the guidelines of maybe what that looks like. If we have simulation theory, are we going to, when reality is completely rewritable, are we going to create heaven on earth or hell on earth? And I just see like a lot of that is in the Bible, specifically this idea of Calvinism, which I almost feel like I should explain it, because people are thinking, why are you dealing with this particular, John Calvin, who was kind of a marginal figure in Christianity. But his idea was that, everything is pre-planned by God, everything, even the sin, and that everyone was born with something called original sin, or total depravity, which means everyone is guilty of every sin.
Right.
And to me, this is really important, because if we're going to simulate everyone, if we're going to bring everyone back from the dead, we have to understand that to recreate everyone's personalities, we will have to bring back, we have to guess what everyone's thinking. We have to guess. And so we have to do trillions of versions of everyone.
Damn.
Because everyone has their own, inner life. Before a timeline is run, we have to throw in every possible series of interactions and events that would comprise that recapitulated personality. So it's super important, because it's such a disturbing concept, and most people are going to say this, we can't do this. But I kind of want to emphasize that this is a part of Christian theology going back hundreds and hundreds of years.
Just what you're explaining about everyone's own specific paths needing to be replicated or
Yeah.
Sorry, it actually makes me think of the movie Synecdoche, New York. Are you guys familiar with that film?
I don't think I've seen this, actually. No.
Oh, yeah. So whatever.
No, I don't.
So it's about this guy who gets a grant to make whatever theater project he wants, and he basically builds a world inside of a warehouse, and he tries to put on a play where every single person in the world has their own story being told at the same time. And as the film goes on, it becomes more and more about this like minutia of these people's lives. Like, no, the only way to tell the truest story is to have every single person walking on the street have their own story told, and you're just making me think of that. uh, but if you haven't seen it, I don't know if there's much of a connection there.
I have to check this out.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was just saying to Celeste, because of the continued technical issues, we should maybe just wrap up the episode. I do think I have enough that I could put out a shorter episode and just explain that we had technical difficulties. What is one item you can't live without?
Oh man. Definitely my phone.
Okay.
Okay, so one item I can't live without.
Yeah.
It's I don't no, I can't think of an item that I can't live without. I'm very no, I'll have to pass on that one.
Okay. uh, what was the last
That's
great movie?
humble.
What's that? Oh,
I
humble.
said that's
Yes.
humble. Yeah.
Humble. Yes. What was the last great movie you saw in theaters?
Oh man. All right. So this is gonna be funny. The song Moana.
What's it called?
Moana, the Disney movie.
Oh,
That was
Moana.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of the last movies I saw in theater, and I cried because I'm part Polynesian,
Oh, cool. Okay.
and yeah, so seeing like my culture, like seeing that was kind of sweet, and yeah, it was really sweet. I love the movie.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Daniel?
I I don't go to the theaters very often, but I'd say the last time I saw a film that really made a huge impression on me in a theater was AI by Steven Spielberg.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, it's a very
That
heavy
so that's a
film.
long time ago.
Yeah.
Love that.
It's a good movie though.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What was the last
yeah,
great
that's my favorite film probably.
Oh, wow. Okay. What was the last great concert you went to?
This is tough. The last, so the last concert I went to was Ghostman, and I'm not gonna say that was good. Uh,
Oh, okay.
but I would have to say Styx was probably the greatest show I have ever attended because it
Wow.
was Styx. Like they're literally like how they sound on like CD because obviously playing their songs over a jillion times, I'm sure, has helped them along the way, but they're just so crisp and clean sounding. It was
Cool.
just so like, and for their age too, gotta give them that too. Sounded better than REO Speedwagon.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
uh, Daniel?
I've been to see a lot of concerts, and I hate concerts because it's never as good as the you can see a great band and they play a great show, but it's never as good as the actual recorded LP. It never lives up to that, and
Hmm.
I guess I just don't like the concert experience.
Okay.
I can't think of a single concert I've really enjoyed. I probably stopped going to them 7 or 8 years ago. I just stopped completely. Heavy
Okay.
metal bands though, if at least you're gonna go to a band that's at least if there's at least some violence or like a mosh pit or something, that at least makes it interesting.
Right.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. What was the last great book you read?
Um,
I
that
guess
is a good question.
you
Hold
could
on.
I guess you
Let
could
me
say the
let me look real
Bible
quick.
technically.
Right.
Yeah. Daniel, do you want to answer while she's looking up her book?
Yeah, different scientific books like definitely Physics of Immortality by Frank Tipler is completely relevant to this film.
Cool.
Um, the Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins, Susan Blackmore's books, and then for like fiction, I was reading like all of T.S. Eliot's books while I was making this Bible film, and so like the
Okay.
Cocktail Party, the Wasteland, um, that's recently. T.S. Eliot's been the one I've been getting into.
Yeah, I think I've read some of The Wasteland. Oh, wow. Understanding Psychology.
Yeah, definitely. I've
Oh,
been
nice.
getting more into uh brain work and whatnot.
Cool. That's awesome. That sounds really
Yes,
inspiring.
yes,
Um,
that's definitely been. I couldn't remember what it was, and I knew it was a textbook, but I didn't want to say the wrong name.
right, right. Okay. For his final meal, John Wayne Gacy picked KFC chicken, shrimp, and strawberries. For your final meal before being executed, what would you pick?
Um, I answered this not too long ago, and I said chicken and waffles
Oh, nice.
with
Okay.
with a milkshake, but I'm not sure what type of milkshake. I would probably go with strawberry.
Oh, nice. Okay. Daniel?
I think that sounds pretty good. What John Wayne Gacy had, I'd probably go with the same answer.
Really?
He had
Okay.
pretty good taste.
Okay.
Well, I'm a vegetarian. I'm a
Oh, so
vegetarian, but if it's my last meal, it won't really matter. So then
I
I'd
guess
Right.
that's
probably just
true.
have fried chicken
Yeah.
and. What did you say? He had fried chicken and strawberries?
KFC chicken, shrimp, and strawberries. That's wild.
Yeah, he yeah,
Shrimp.
he was an interesting guy.
Okay, this is the final question. Can art go too far?
Oof, this is a question for me.
Okay.
I do believe, yes, that it can.
Okay.
Um, definitely. But when it does get to that point, I wouldn't even consider it art, in my
Okay.
honest opinion. Um, I do believe that some people can go a little bit too extreme. And I understand, like, it's because they're like, well, I've already done this. I need to, like, okay. Like it's unnecessary. Like, there's other ways you can go about doing it without doing it visually. Like how you said, emotions really go a long way. Like, I remember the first movie that actually scared me was Stephen King's what was it, Sleepwalkers, where
Oh
they turn
yeah.
into cats.
Yeah,
Like, it's
yeah.
not, it's cheesy as hell, but you really think about it, you don't know people. You
Yeah.
really don't know people, and that's what's scary. That's the real scary thing.
Yeah.
And that terrified me as a child.
No, fair, fair. Daniel?
That's a really good question because I think that there is no limit because but it depends on what the motivation is for like if the art has a well, an example I could think of is my favorite director is Georges Franju, and he did a film called The Blood of the Beasts,
Okay.
which was showing animals being killed in the slaughterhouse.
Yeah, I think I've seen that.
And my thoughts on that are that, you know, as someone who's into animal rights and who thinks that, you know, I don't like seeing animals being slaughtered, but I think that, you know, there could be a specific reason that that film, from a Machiavellian perspective, that depicting those things in a film could, in the long run, actually help the cause. You know, you could actually would be a way that animal rights could be by seeing things that people don't want to see, by forcing them to see those things, you could actually paradoxically help save more animals in the long run. Or to take that analogy a bit further, um, from a Machiavellian perspective, those animals would all be dead now, anyways. And maybe in the far off future, the AI superintelligence, you know, whatever the human race evolves into, will see that film and say, hey, let's resurrect those animals. So I kind of look at things from a like strictly Machiavellian perspective. Like it could be something wrong. It could be wrong, but in the long run, it just depends on what the intentions are, what the motivations are.
Yeah.
But so in theory, I don't think you can ever go too far in art.
Okay. Yeah. That's fair. That's a good explanation for it. Yeah. Um yeah. Well, I guess we should wrap it then. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. I'm sorry that we ran into a lot of difficulties here, but I think people listening or watching this will get a taste of the King James Bible and hopefully plunge in or as you were saying, wait for this final version. But personally, I'm really glad I watched it. Because I was worried like if I'm gonna be able to sit through a 330-minute version of it, and when I got to the end of the 76 minutes, I was ready for more. So I think that's pretty ideal.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that, Bob. Well, we really appreciate you allowing us to come on and talk about it. And I apologize.
Yes.
All the technical problems were my. It all comes down to my computer, which is 30 years old, and I'm in the
Wow.
middle of there's like a tropical rainstorm behind me, so
Oh my God.
it's completely my
Oh,
fault. I apologize for that.
Yeah. No worries. No worries.
oh,
Okay.
well, stay safe, please.
Yes.
Definitely.
Stay safe. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we will cap it here, and everyone check out Blucifer and Celeste's work and Daniel's work, and I'm stoked to see the split when you guys put it out. Stoked to see the full King James Bible too.
And the split is called Fission. That's the name of the split with Blucifer.
Yes.
Fission.
Yeah, fission and like kind of like fission and fusion.
Correct.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
like a
yeah.
split, but we're like fusing together. Yeah,
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Can't wait to check that out. All right,
for
guys.
sure.
Thanks so much for your time.